idea will come to them. That idea, they'll say, oh, I thought about something. Meanwhile, that idea was planted deep in their subconscious. That's what happened with this guy. By the way, that's also what happened with propaganda in the Southeast. Every single person in the Southeast was conditioned to believe certain things. It's so deeply planted in the subconsciousness. If I say it's a lie, you will tell me I'm a hater. It has formed part of your identity. You think it's original to you. You think it's your thought. It is not your thought. It is something that they planted it deep. It's so deep that you have to go 3 levels down in your dream to be able to reach it. And if you remember, if you watch that film, I love that film. If you watch that film, you remember that there was a reason Leonardo DiCaprio's wife in that movie, there's a reason she committed suicide. Why? He made her sleep and then made her dream in her sleep until like another dream, like 2-3 steps in the level, he planted the idea. And what was the idea? The idea was that they needed to live their real life and live in their dreams. Don't worry, it might be complicated. I'm going somewhere. And so when they woke up in real life, that idea was still in her head. She was looking for a way to die so that she could go to the dreamland, which is going to be the quote unquote the new reality for them. Even when he tried to change her mind, she could not change her mind. And the reason she couldn't change her mind is because she had thought deeply about it, and it was the only thing she had to do. That was the only escape. Meanwhile, that escape that she was looking at was something that was planted by her own husband, who made that dream 2 levels or 3 levels into her like subconsciousness. What am I trying to say? When you see a person saying we had 70 million people die in the Southeast during the war, and you know that the entire population of Igbo people in the world at the time was 7 million people, he doesn't care that he's wrong. That idea was planted deep into his subconsciousness. That's formed part of the person's identity. The same way Yoruba people have to learn to greet, respect, prostrate as a boy, kneel down as a girl. Those cultural values, the same thing that respect means to you is what victimization means to some people. It has been wired deep into their subconsciousness. They think that to even come against it, you are against them. Meanwhile, it's a lie. It's not even real. How would 70 million, 21 million, 7 million, how would 21 million people die in a population of 7 million? But nobody thinks about that. It's just like, oh, yeah, they died. Hey, yeah, sorry, Nigerian people are bad. All these Nigerians are very terrible people. Yeah, me too. Then you have a trauma bonding party, PT party. Everybody's throwing ashes in the air, acting like they've lost everything. The truth of the matter is that people can plant ideas in your mind. Even in 1981, we're going to see some things in this book today. Do you know that even during the war, Adewale Ademoyega knew that Ojukwu was a wrong person to work with, and he still worked with him. He knew that Madiebo was a tribalist, and he still worked with him. And he wrote all those things in his book. In 1981, he still believed in 81. That's 15 years after the coup that he was one of the original planners of the coup. Meanwhile, the guys who planned it, you know that even up until recently, a lot of us believed that it was Nzogu that planned the coup. But Nzogu was not even one of the original planners. They planted that thing in our minds. They said it over and over again. And that's how propaganda works. You take a complex idea, you simplify it, you make it black and white. And then you repeat it over and over and over while you are blaming others for what you have done. You say it over and over again. Before you know it, all of us have the same thing. We say it's history. You can even fight. Do you know where I read it? My father told me. Your father didn't know anything. My father told me. Do you know my father experienced the war? Your father was suffering for what the person who told him what was happening did to him. In other words, Ojukwu was denying your father food. Ojukwu was telling your father was Awo. Your father believes Ojukwu. So it didn't matter. It doesn't matter that your father was there. Your father believed what he was told. That's the sad part. And like I said, every time I look at people from the Southeast, for the most part, I see you guys as victims of propaganda. But I also think that some people here, some people there also don't want to change. But for the most part, you are victims of propaganda. You just believe it, and it's a lie. We're going to go into details of what happened during the war later on, but let's get back to the book. It says Major Ifajuna, the high jumper, and Okafor, commander of the Federal Guard, were the principal plotters, and they brought Nzogu, dubbed by one writer the Brutus of the coup. And I'm wondering, why would they call him the Brutus of the coup? What did Nzogu do that made them call him Brutus? We'll get into it. Oh boy, I'm excited about this. See, let me tell you the funny thing. It is true that Nzogu moved from the north and went to Lagos and surrendered. That's why they call him Brutus. But do you know that he was the only one that was successful in amongst all of them? Oh boy. See, excuse me, Ifajuna, Okafor, Oji, they did not plan that coup. They didn't plan that coup to revolutionize Nigeria. They planned that coup to install Ironsi. All the idea of an Igbo man stop one thing, we'll read it from, I'm going to read Achepe's book today. I'll read it. In fact, let's go to Achepe's book for a second. We're coming back. In fact, let's finish this. They called him in, they brought him in, Nzogu, they brought him in because they needed an efficient and strongly motivated man to direct operations in the north. By the end of October 1965, there were 7 officers in the conspiracy, 5 majors and a captain were Igbos, and the remaining major was a Yoruba. It was already 5 majors, but there were actually 7 people. There were 2 captains. Those 2 captains were Igbo. 4 of the 5 majors were Igbo, only 1 was Yoruba. What's the percentage of 1 over 7 times 100? 7 in 100 will be what? 7 in 10 is 1, 7 in 30 is 4, 14.2%. That's the percentage of the Yoruba person in that coup. But you know, like I always say, what makes it an Igbo coup is not because the planners were Igbo or majorly Igbo. There are not 18 planners, there are 7. And of those 7, there were 5 majors. And of those 7, there was 1 Yoruba man. There were not 1,000 planners. Oh, we have Yoruba, we have a list of Yoruba names. Who were they? People like Nwobosi, for instance, who unalived Akintola in Ibadan, wasn't even part of the original killing. They brought him in much later. 14.28%. The Yoruba person it was just 1 person. Every other person you see in there was brought in. I think I should repeat that thing because it's important. You know, I know I said it yesterday, but it's important to do it again. So please humor me, oblige me, so to speak. Let's get back into how those people got involved. I'm going to come back to this stuff, and I'm also going to go back to Achebe's book eventually. There's something I'm looking for. Follow Yewole. This was the question posed to Follow Yewole. It was on the allegation that you were among the people that planned that coup, that you were detained by the federal government. We want you to assess the situation then that really prompted the military to strike. And here's his answer. I was not one of the master planners of the coup. It will interest you to know that by 11:30 on the night of January 14th, 1966, I had no clue about the coup. No clue whatsoever. So why did they link you? Precisely, I was friendly with Emmanuel Ifajuna, who was a brigade general, and then after they had planned and done everything possible, as the saying goes, some of the people who agreed to what they had agreed decided not to take part. It was a matter of getting anybody who could help, and by virtue of my position, I had a telephone in my house, which was the same thing that happened to most people there. The original planners started telephoning, "Where are you? I want to see you." It was an emergency period. I was second in command to the transport brigade in Apapa, and we were on 24-hour alert. It didn't come as a surprise, so that is what happened. They drove to my house. Okay, so like they would say something like this: something is happening in Ogbomoso, blah blah blah. Can you help out? We did get instructions 24 hours, so it didn't come as a surprise. So that is what happened. They drove to my house at about 25 minutes to 12, and asked me to come to Ifajuna's house. I got there and I saw a lot of officers sitting down, and they had even finished what they were talking about. And they said, "You stay and I will brief you." And he also mentioned what happened to Ganiyu Adeleke, that he has spoken to them like, listen, I have to go and talk to my family about what I'm about to do, because they didn't even know there was a coup. They just knew that they had to, do something in the middle of the night. And then the officer said to one of the officers told another one that follow him. He might be the first casualty of the coup. And when he heard that, there was no need to even move and do anything else. I'm going to read something else to you from the book by Bengbule. This one is about a gentleman called Lieutenant Gibson Anyafulu. This is from Nigerian 5 Majors by Bengbule. He says here, even more unfortunately, the junior officers who had gone along with the plotters had not been properly briefed, which was for fear that the secret might be leaked to the authorities. The net result was that those junior officers who would otherwise have proved immensely useful were made to tag along blindly, with no clue as to what precisely the whole military operation was all about. They didn't know. No clue at all, just like what Oga said the other time. No clue. One of such junior officers was Lieutenant Gibson Anyafulu of the Signals, Apapa. According to him, he did not even know that the coup was in progress, although he was actively, if innocently, involved in its prosecution. On the very night of the operation, at about 100 hours, he was woken up by the BM of the 2nd Brigade, Major Emma Ifajuna, and told to get dressed immediately because there had been an emergency, and hence the need for an internal security operation. Incidentally, the military push had coincided with Lieutenant Anyafulu's 6th week in the Nigerian army. In fact, he had not been amply acquainted with the mechanics of weapon handling as a whole when Ifajuna thrust a weapon into his hands. Later on, he was taken by Major Wale Ademoyiga to the P&T headquarters in the Lagos Island and left there with instructions to proceed to paralyze all the vital items of the communication equipment inside the building. He set to work at once without bothering to find out why. Indeed, without asking any questions at all. Then, having completed the assignment, he did nothing else but to wait for a superior officer to return. He waited long enough to become irritable. Finally, as dawn was breaking, he caught a bus back to Apapa. It was not until, listen to this, it was not until he was arrested, after his arrival at the officers' mess, Apapa, that he realized that he had just taken part in a botched up military coup. Many of the people whose names are going all over the internet right now did not even know. They did not plan it. They didn't even execute it consciously, for the most part. Excuse me. They were just, following the commands. So that's that about those people. Now, back to the people who actually did organize the coup. Like we said, it is true that Ademoyiga was one of the 7, but it's actually not true that what he said, that it was one of the original 3, was what he said, that was one of the original 3. That's not true. In actual fact, he was invited much later. He just thought it was his idea. It was not his idea. Now, let's go back to the book by John de St. John. The book is called The Nigerian Civil War. I'm just going to read something to you. I'll tie it to something in Nigerian 5 Majors. Then we'll go to the document I really want to read, Special Branch Report of 1966. All right. I don't even think we eventually got to reading the special branch report in that video, but I might as well just read it now. Right, I think the video was quite long, so I think we just cut that part out. I'm just going to read part of it, right? And maybe another time we're going to have a full session on Sorry guys, I've been speaking all the while. I thought I was actually live. Hope everybody can hear me now. All right. So thank you very much. We've been listening to a video that we did a while back. It's called 1966 Coup Exposed: Secrets from the Special Branch Report. And you find that video in the YouTube channel, Busui Oris Works on YouTube. So please check out the channel. You're going to find a lot of videos that will help you understand Nigeria's history better. But there's some points I made there that we didn't really get to the book itself for one reason or the other. I'm actually quite surprised that video on there. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to read part of the report, right? But please remember where we started, just in case you're just joining us. I'll probably just read something from John de St. John, then I'll read the Special Branch Report itself. And what we got from that book, again, the book is called The Nigerian Civil War by John de St. John. Now, let me quickly say something. A lot of people do not think that the 1966 coup was an Igbo coup. A lot of people don't think that. And they have a right to their opinions, and they have a right to whatever their thoughts are. But I'm not one of those people. I know that the coup was an Igbo coup. I'm not saying I believe, I'm saying I know. The knowledge is based on evidence. It's not based on conjectures or the desire to denigrate an ethnic group. It's just what it is. And I've said it several times. Just like we say the Northern Counter Coup. I'll talk about the Counter Coup of July 1966. We call it the Northern Counter Coup. It is what it is. Like, we don't, try to beat around the bush and say, oh, it's not really the Northern Coup. It's probably the Southern, Northern, Eastern, Northern, Southern. We just go straight to the point. So I don't see any reason to make excuses for something that's so glaring, right? Right, as far as history is concerned. So it was an Igbo coup, and I've said it again that it's not an Igbo coup because most of the people that planned it were Igbos. You can't say that because naturally you're going to have more Igbos planning a coup if a coup were to be planned in the 60s. Why? Because you had more Igbo officers, period. And so the number of officers is not what makes it an Igbo coup. And I know a lot of people say, oh, because there are a lot of Igbos there. And in order to counter that, you have this other interesting bunch of people who then go ahead to create create names. I don't know where they got the names from. Create names of a lot of Yoruba people and then attach those names and say, oh, look at it now. There's so many Yoruba people there. Therefore, you can't call it an Igbo coup. Both sides are not thinking straight. Number one, it's not an Igbo coup because a lot of Igbo people actually planned it. That's not what makes it an Igbo coup. It's an Igbo coup because of the intention and the execution. And people say, oh, but the intention is to change Nigeria. Well, if you're talking about the revolutionary bit, yeah, we can all say we're all together. And that's why everybody was very happy when this thing happened, right? If you read the book that I mentioned in that video, The Nigerian Civil War by John de St. John, it makes it very clear that the coup was greeted by a wild outburst of rejoicing in the southern half of the country. People were happy. People were happy, like, oh, this happened. Like, this is what always, because they essentially breathed a sigh of relief. 63, there was the census crisis. 64, election crisis. 65 was when the huge rigging happened in the Western region, which was, a lot of people were already on the edge. But like I said in that video, and I should make something clear, a lot of writers, I don't want to mention their names now because I already mentioned it in the video, have this thing for the Special Branch Report, and then they also want something to be true when they say things like it was what happened in Western region that led to the coup. It's a lie. What happened in the Western region happened in the last quarter of the year, but the coup itself was planned in August of 1965. So there's no way what happened in the last quarter made the planning that happened before the event happen. Like, it doesn't make sense. So that's that. But I mentioned the Special Branch Report a number of times, and I don't think it's fair if we leave without actually reading that report. So let me quickly get it for us, and then we'll have a few more minutes of discussion. Give me a second, please. Okay, yeah. Before I read that, sorry, I want to read an introduction from John de St. John, so that it gives us, cohesion. In case it gives us congruence, in case you're just joining us. All right. All right, so it says here, the full truth about the details of the first coup may never be known, since all the principal conspirators are dead, killed in the July counter coup or in the civil war. But sufficient evidence is available to eliminate some of its central mysteries. The best account is a federal police report on which I have based much of the narrative. Please, I'm going to have to pause. If you're on YouTube, please, I really need you to like this live. Being seen on camera is not why we like the live, because if we don't, this thing will go off, right? So please, I really need your help. If you're on YouTube, like the live, share as well. I see, and thank you, by the way, YouTube guys. Thank you for coming back, everyone. Thank you so much. We had a challenge earlier, but we're good now. But please just double tap on your screen on YouTube. That means you've liked the live. It's not that difficult. And if it's a TV, just look for the like icon, the thumbs up, and then like the live. That way it will be recommended to others. If on YouTube, apart from the fact that we need it to be recommended to others, this is the way to keep it going. So please, let's do that. All right. Thank you very much for your support. We're on 6.4K likes on YouTube. Let's get this into 10, 15, 20K, because we want to make sure that we don't have any problems. All right, thank you very much. So let me get back to reading this. The full truth about the details of the first coup may never be known, since all the principal conspirators are dead, killed in the July counter coup or in the civil war. But sufficient evidence is available to eliminate some of its central mysteries. The best account is a federal police report on which I have based much of the narrative. This book I'm reading right now is called The Nigerian Civil War by John Desenjor. This document, prepared by the Nigerian Special Branch, took 3 months to finish. Right, it took 3 months to finish. It was ready in April 1966 and was written after 200 officers and men, including all the ringleaders involved in the coup, had been exhaustively interrogated. The body of the report is, I am convinced, a thoroughly honest, painstaking, and politically untainted piece of work. The astonishing detail and the formal police language substantiate both its authenticity and veracity. But the introduction, which may have been added later, and the inferences from the reports after the fall of Iran's regime, suggests an attempt to give it a political gloss, which is content belie. In other words, the content of the stuff itself is more important than the introduction, which was introduced later. All right, so this is what I'm going to do. We're going to go to the report now. Again, if you want to understand the events of 66, so you have to read different books. That's the truth, because you won't get everything in one book. But the most important document, I think, is the one I'm about to read right now. All right. So this is the special branch. This is actually the document itself, the special branch report, military rebellion on 15th January 1966. Let's start by saying that this is not the full report. This is like a part of it, but it's enough to give us understanding of some things. This draft was released to a highly restricted circulation of certain persons in government and outside the country in very early August 1966 and then leaked. The remainder of the report, which allegedly implicated certain other persons, has apparently never been released widely to this day. Alright, so just to put that out there, this part was leaked. And by the way, if you want this thing, let me know in the comment section. I'll tell you how to get it if you would like to have a copy of this. Alright, let's get started. Due to unforeseen circumstances, it has not been possible so far to inform the nation fully of events which took place in the Federation on 15th January 1966 at Lagos, Ibadan, and Kaduna. Events which were directly responsible for further military action on the 29th July 1966. It will be appreciated that events of this nature require prolonged, painstaking investigation. It is realized that the absence of legitimate information on this subject has produced a flood of undesirable rumors and speculation. It is, however, pointed out that without thorough investigation, the wisdom of any premature releases unsupported by fact was questionable. Investigations have not yet been completed, but it is now possible to put the nation and the world in possession of the facts so far collected. The civilian involvement and the influence in the whole affair is not as far as possible included in this report. So in time can say there's some things that are not there. Those ones you're going to have to read other books to plug in the holes. It has been established that sometime during, please pay attention. It has been established that sometime during August 1965, a small group of army officers dissatisfied with political developments within the Federation began to plot in collaboration with some civilians the overthrow of what was then the government of the Federation of Nigeria. The plan, which eventually emerged from their deliberations, was that on a date not yet decided at the time, the following action would be taken by troops from selected units, led by the ringleaders of the plot. So, what have you noticed? I'll be explaining as we go along, right? The first thing is that 200 people were interrogated to get this report out. The second thing is that every single person that was part of that coup was interrogated, and others that you probably don't know about. And some of those names I mentioned in the video we just listened to when I talked about Bengbule's book, The Nigerian's Five Majors, and also Ademola Ademoyega's book, Why We Struck, and so on and so forth. Number three also, we also know that there were civilians involved in the planning of the coup. Number four, that the coup itself was planned in August of 1965. Okay? So it says, these are certain things that we've gotten so far. A, the arrest of leading, this was the plan they had though. When they said the plan which eventually emerged from the deliberations was that on a date not yet decided at the time, the following action would be taken by troops from selected units led by the ringleaders of the plot. A, the arrest of leading politicians at Lagos, Ibadan, Kaduna, Enugu, and Benin. The plan stipulated that wherever resistance was encountered, the individuals were to be killed. B, the occupation of key points such as radio and TV stations, telephone exchange, and other public utilities, police headquarters, and signal installations by carefully selected troops who were not, however, to be informed in advance of the true nature of their operations. And so when you hear names of people that were part of the execution, a lot of them did not know. E.g., Fola Yewole, whose interview I read earlier, they did not know. He didn't even know about the coup until he didn't even know about the coup when it was called. So they picked him up around 11:40 p.m. January 14, and the coup was the early hours of January 15. All right, next, the movement of troops and armored fighting vehicles to Jeba and Makurdi to hold the Benue and Niger bridges with a view to preventing the movement of any troops opposed to the plotters' aims to and from the north. D, the assassination of all senior army officers known to be in position to foil successfully the conspirators' efforts to topple the government of the Federation. E, the eventual takeover of the machinery of government by the rebels. Although, listen to this, although the original plan stipulated that action intended by the plotters should take place simultaneously in all the regional capitals, no arrangements were made to implement these intentions in Benin and Enugu. All right? And I think I said it the other day. There were 5 capitals in Nigeria at the time: Lagos, Ibadan, Kaduna, Benin, and Enugu. And so in reality, although they wrote it down in the beginning that they want to have actions or event or the plans carried out or executed in those 5 capitals, in actual fact, they planned for 3 capitals: Lagos, Kaduna, and Ibadan. Number 6, the date on which the plot was to be put into execution was decided by several factors. These include the return of the Premier of the Northern Region from Mecca and the Commonwealth Prime Ministers Conference held at Lagos between the 11th and 13th January 1966. An additional factor was the possibility that details of the plotters' intentions might have leaked out, necessitating early implementation of the plot. In this manner, the night of 14th to 15th January was finally selected. Number 7, the action, which was well planned and conducted like a military operation, was in its first stages efficiently carried out. Immediately before the H hour, which has been set for 2 a.m. on the 15th January, A number of junior officers were taken into the confidence of the ringleaders of the plot, e.g., like I mentioned earlier, Folayewale, Ganiyu Adeleke, right? Those people were brought in new time here. And even when Adeleke was trying to go back, when he said he wanted to go call his family members to tell them what was gonna happen, somebody was sent, to follow him, and they said he might be the first casualty of the coup. What I just said right now, you see it in the reluctant rebel by Folayewale, and the person who was going to call their family members, right, was actually Ganiyu Adeleke, and those two eventually worked with them, and they were imprisoned along with the rest in Enugu. Let's go on. So they said that before H hour, which has been set for 2 a.m. on the 15th January, a number of junior officers were taken into the confidence of the ringleaders of the plot. It is known that a number of these were reluctant to comply with the wishes of the plotters. Confirmed information indicates that it was made clear to these junior officers that those who were not with the conspirators would be regarded as being opposed to them and might suffer death as a consequence. This confirms what Folayewale also said. Number 9, non-commissioned ranks involved in the night's activities at Lagos, Kaduna, and Ibadan were given no previous information of the true nature of the action in which they were about to be engaged. I talked about the Anya Lucy soldier who was positioned at the P&T in Lagos and did not know he was part of a coup until he was arrested. But what he was doing was exactly what he was instructed to do. He was ordered to do it, so he did it. That's why all these other names that people are putting on social media is just nonsense. Like, it has nothing to do with what really happened. But again, propaganda must propaganda. Let's continue. Agenda must agenda. Number 10, the activities of the rebels commencing at 2 a.m. on 15th January 66 resulted in the deaths of the following personalities. At Lagos, A. Alhaji Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, Prime Minister of the Federation of Nigeria. B. Chief F.S. Okotiebo, Finance Minister of the Federation. Brigadier Z. Maimalari, Commander of the 2nd Brigade, Nigerian Army. Colonel K. Mohammed, Chief of Staff, Nigerian Army. Lieutenant Colonel A.C. Unegbe, Quartermaster General. Lieutenant Colonel J.T. Pam, Adjutant General. Lieutenant Colonel A. Lagema, Commanding Officer, 4th Battalion Army. At Ibadan, S. Alakitola, Premier of Western Nigeria. At Kaduna, Nigeria. Brigadier S. Ademulegun, Commander of the 1st Brigade, Nigerian Army. Colonel R. A. Shodainde, Deputy Commandant, Nigerian Defense Academy. Ahmed Dan Musa, Senior Assistant Secretary, Security to the North Regional Government. Sergeant Duro Mola Oyegoke of the Nigerian Army. The senior wife of Amadou Bello, the wife of Brigadier Ademulegun. So how do you have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. There are other names, not Kosibio. But let's just continue. In addition to the foregoing, 4 members of the Nigerian Police, 1 junior NCO of the Nigerian Army, and an estimated number of 6 civilians lost their lives during the night's events. 1 major of the Nigerian Army was accidentally shot and killed at Ibadan on the 17th January 66, bringing the total loss of life to 27. I'll just ask you a question. How many Igbos were part of this number? That's all the question I'll ask. But we'll talk about that later. Apart from the aforementioned killings, a number of political leaders and civil servants were arrested by the plotters and detained in military establishments at Lagos and Kaduna. This included Sir Kashim Ibrahim, at the time Governor of Northern Nigeria, Alhaji Hassan Lemu, Principal Private Secretary to the Premier of Northern Nigeria, Abba Kandagare Gobara, Assistant Principal Private Secretary to the Premier of Northern Nigeria, B.A. Fani Kayode, at the time Deputy Premier of Western Nigeria. Details of the event are as follows. In August 1965, 3 officers, please pay attention everyone. 3 officers, Major Okafor, Major Ifajuna, and Captain Oji, who were already dissatisfied with political developments in the Federation and the impact of these developments on the Army, held a series of discussions between them about the matter. and set about the task of searching for other officers who held views similar to their own and who could eventually be trusted to join them in the enterprise of staging a military coup d'etat. In September 1965, Major I.H. Chukwuka of Nigerian Army Headquarters, Lagos, was persuaded to join the group of conspirators, followed in October 1965 by Major C.I. Anufuro, also of the Army Headquarters. Major C.K. Nzogu was brought in around that time through the efforts of Major Anufuro, an old friend of both Majors Nzogu and Okafor. Major Nzogu in turn secured the support for the plan of Major A. Ademoyiga, who had worked with him in the Nigerian Army Training College, Kaduna. I've said this thing several times, but what do you notice here? The original planners of the coup met in August of 65, and the original planners, as in the foundational planners, if there's anything like that, were three: Okafor, Ifajuna, and Oji. And I've done this session before, but once we are done with our, be shocked, to realize that the person who actually was the foundational member of the planning committee was one of those who then told Ademoyiga, who was brought in last, by the way, that he could not accomplish his own objectives. Right? He was the one who said, oh, everybody had left, or there was no way I could do it, or that he had failed. And by the way, that same person and Ifajuna, two of whom were the original planners, were in Enugu by 2:15 p.m. on Saturday, January 15. It's quite interesting, isn't it? And two of them as well, Oji and Okafor, were the ones who told Ironsi when they would be coming to his house, which made him leave the house before they got there. And the way Bengbuli described that action, he called it treachery. He said they didn't envisage the treachery of Oji and Okafor. And he explained that because Oji was from Umuahia, just like Ironsi, that was the reason Oji and Okafor went to tell Ironsi about this thing. And like I said, we've had full sessions on this thing. Maybe another time we're going to do it. To why I said I know exactly what I'm talking about when we say that Ironsi knew about everything before it happened. And interestingly, I think I said this last week, when everybody got to his office 5 a.m. on January 15, he said to them to give them 2 more hours before they would chase those people. That's why when people say things like he crushed the coup, I'm like, crush which coup? It was Yakubu Gowon who asked the boys, when did this thing start? They said 3 a.m. It's 5 a.m. now. Why do you want to give them another 2 hours? He said, we have to do something now. And when he was writing notes of who they should bring in, interestingly, quite interesting, 2 names he wrote, apart from the places they have to fix, they have to and Oji. Why? Anyway, so what we've read so far is this: the original planners were Ifajuna, Okafor, and Oji. Then they brought in Humphrey Chukwuka, and Chukwuka brought in and then after they brought in Chukwuka, they also brought in Anufuro. Anufuro then brought in Nzogu, and then Nzogu brought in Adewale Ademoyiga, who, by the way, is the only Yoruba here. And again, even if all the people here were Igbo, it still doesn't mean that it was an Igbo coup. Even if there was no Yoruba there, it was still that's not what makes it an Igbo coup. So people also have to be very careful when we say things like it's an Igbo coup because most of them were Igbos. Most of them would be Igbos because most of the officers were Igbos. And again, it's not the first time we had a coup in Nigeria. One was planned in 1964. You find details of that in David Ejo's book, Reminiscences. And the person who planned that coup was Ojukwu. But we'll talk about that some other time. Let's get back to the report. So it says, by early November, the recruiting activities of the group were completed, and an inner circle of conspirators emerged, consisting of the following officers: Major C.K. Nzogu, Major A. Ademoyiga, Major E. A. Ifajuna, Major C.I. Anufuro, Major I.H. Chukwuka, Major D. Okafor, Captain O. Oji. Or Captain O. Oji. Planning for the execution of the plot started in earnest in early November 1965 at a meeting of the Inner Circle, which took place in Major Ifajuna's house in Lagos. The plan which eventually emerged from the deliberations was broadly as follows. A. The arrest of VIPs at Kaduna, Ibadan, Lagos, Enugu, and Benin. Again, remember what this same document said, that they had no... If I read it again. It says, although the original plan stipulated that the action intended by the plotters should take place simultaneously in all the regional capitals, no arrangements were made to implement these intentions in Benin and Enugu. But here they're saying that the plan is to, or was to, have this following things done. A. The arrest of VIPs at Kaduna, Ibadan, Lagos, Enugu, and Benin. The plan stipulated wherever resistance to arrest was encountered, the individuals concerned were to be killed. B. The occupation of vulnerable points such as radio and TV stations, telephone exchange, police signal installations, airfields, and civilian administrative establishments by carefully selected troops, who were not, however, to be informed in advance of the purpose of their operations. C. The movement of troops to Jebba and Makurdi to hold the Niger and Benue bridges against any movement of troops opposed to the plotters' aims to and from the north. D. The killing of all senior army officers who were in a position to foil successfully the conspirators' efforts to topple the government of the Federation and who resided in the areas of operations. E. The eventual takeover of the machinery of government by the army. Among the civilian VIPs scheduled for arrest, the following have been named: the Prime Minister of the Federation, the Federal Finance Minister, the Premiers of Northern, Western, Midwestern, and Eastern Nigeria. Additional personalities scheduled to be arrested in Lagos were the following: K.O. Mbadiwe. I'm sorry. Hey, Jesu mio. I'm laughing. If you read, and I think you should, if you read the book by Frederick Forsyth, The Biafran Story, he said that when the coup plotters, when they were executing the coup, when they were, trying to round up people and kill them, by the way, that's the same one. That's why I said they should change. They have to change the name of that street, because me didn't get it. Can't touch it. To tefi ko wulo fun Yoruba, ko de wulo fun antiti yen kinje titi ìjọba àpapọ̀, tv ìjọba ìpínlẹ̀ Èkó ni. So I don't see any usefulness in my head. Anyway, as the story goes, the man ran across an open lawn, and he ran into, I'm quoting Frederick Forsyth verbatim right now, right? He ran across an open lawn and into the residence of the president of Nigeria at the time, who, by the way, was out of the country. You know why he was out of the country anyway. And Forsyth now added that was the only building the coup plotters did not set. But his name was on the list. Jeja Wachuku was also on the list. Inu Awada was on the list. Shehu Shagari, T.O. Elias, Ayorosiji, Emi Majekodumi, Matthew Umbu, Areo Akinjide, Waziri Ibrahim. By the way, we have statements from Akinjide and Shehu Shagari, and I'm just glad that we have those people tell us what happened. Don't worry, we're going to have another session to discuss this thing. But at least let's take this as introduction, right? Other ranking politicians were to be placed in house arrest pending a decision as to their disposal and eventual fate. By the way, the Mbadiwe that ran across an open field and ran into the house of the president who was not around, and whose house was the only one that was not searched by the army or by the coup plotters, was the same person that the afternoon of that same day, Lawson Ojoye, he was trying to become the acting Prime Minister of Nigeria. But we're supposed to think he was supposed to be killed in the morning. People just like to deceive. I'm sure they deceived Ademo Igasha, thinking that they're going to do this. They didn't touch any Igbo politician, not one. Other ranking politicians were to be placed in house arrest pending a decision as to their disposal and eventual fate. Events have shown that other political figures, including the Deputy Premier of Western Nigeria, the Finance Minister, and the Governor of Northern Nigeria, were scheduled to be arrested. The conspirators further decided that the following senior army officers represented a threat to their plans and must be killed during the first hours of the rebellion. Brigadier Z. Memalari, or Z. Memalari, Lagos. Brigadier S. Ademule Gun, Kaduna. Colonel K. Mohammed, Lagos. Colonel Arishode Inde, Kaduna. Lieutenant Colonel Lagema, Ibadan. Lieutenant Colonel A.C. Negbe, Lagos. Lieutenant Colonel Lagema was the CO of the 4th Battalion NA stationed at Ibadan. On 15th January 1966, however, this officer was on temporary duty at Lagos, staying at the Ikoyi Hotel. For the actual execution of the plan, 3 commanders were nominated, namely Northern Nigeria, Major C.K. Nzogu; Lagos area, Major E.A. Ifajuna; Western Nigeria, Captain E.N. Onwobosi. That's the one who killed Esela Akintola. The latter officer was not a member of the inner circle and was not approached until either the 13th or 14th January 1966. He was, however, well known to the conspirators, who were certain that when the time came, he could be relied on to cooperate. The execution of the plan was, somebody says here, no, Ironsi was not on the list. Nah, it wasn't. The execution of the plan was to take place in 3 areas only. That is Kaduna, Ibadan, and the Lagos area, although many of the participants believed the insurrection to be nationwide. E.g. Nzogu, E.g. Ademoyega. It is a matter of established fact that no violent action took place in either Benin City or Enugu. It has been suggested that these areas were spared because the plotters found it impossible to recruit reliable co-conspirators in these regions. None of the officers has indicated under interrogation that any efforts to recruit collaborators in either Benin or Enugu were made. Indeed, subsequent action of some of the leading officers indicated collaboration with the then Premier of Eastern Nigeria. I'm going to read this thing slowly. And maybe I will stop. I think I will stop after reading this thing. None of the officers has indicated under interrogation that any efforts to recruit collaborators in either Benin or Enugu were made. Indeed, subsequent action of some of the leading officers indicated collaboration with the then Premier of Eastern Region. As soon as Ifajuna and Okafor were done, where did they go to? Enugu. As soon as Ademoyega and Anufuro were done in Ijebu-Ode, where did they go to? Enugu. And like I've said this repeatedly, and it's important, I do it intentionally. By 2:15 p.m., Ifajuna and Okafor were already in Enugu. By 4:30 p.m., Ademoyega and Anufuro were leaving Ijebu-Ode. Maybe they're going to have to make another, 6, 7, 8 hours journey to Enugu. But all roads led to Enugu. Maybe that's the Jerusalem, but it is what it is. For the purposes of this report, the execution of the plan is dealt with in 3 main sections, namely Lagos area, Ibadan, and Kaduna. Each section is divided into incidents showing the identities of officers and men involved. Let's stop here. We're going to have another session dedicated to this report. I just want to introduce it to us in case you have not heard about it before. But the report that I have here with me, it's about 27 pages long. So we're going to have another session to discuss. Again, this document was leaked. It's the first part. The second part has never been released since then. But this one, we are glad to have. If you'd like to have it, reach out to me or write in the comment section and I can tell you how to get it. All right. I'm going to bring people up. Let's just stop here for now. But hopefully also gives you another perspective or also helps you at least understand why I speak the way I do about the coup. It's not because we're trying to denigrate any group. It's just that there's information out there, and once you get it, once you see the information, you cannot unsee the information. And it's going to be very difficult for people to blackmail you with any of these things. All right, if anybody wants to say anything, please send your request. I'll bring you up. Anyone? Umbo. All right. Again, today's Thursday, so we usually have half session. So we're going to end very soon. It won't be long. I would like to have the report. Thank you. Okay. No, sorry, I didn't tell you where to send me the message. It's going to be on Telegram, so it will be easy for me to just forward it to you. I'm also trying to make sure that so there are documents that I put out on RedoMe before, but I want to be careful of the things that are out there. I don't want to. No, I think it's even still there. It's still there. It's still there. All right. So yeah, we do this every weekday, Monday to Friday, 1 p.m. Ife time, West African time. 1 p.m. Ife time, West African time. Please mute. All right. So we do this every weekday, Mondays to Fridays, Ife time, West Africa, 1 p.m. Ife time, West African time. And I was going to say Mondays and Wednesdays we don't stay for so long, so we're going to be ending the session soon. But for those of us, regardless of the platform you're listening on, we'll be again tomorrow at 1 p.m. We're going to have a full session. We're going to be discussing state creation. We'll spend time on the Western region tomorrow, and if possible, we'll get into Eastern region as well. So that will be tomorrow, 1 p.m. Ife time, West African time. All right. But for now, we're still here for a bit, but we'll be wrapping up very soon. Perizim, good afternoon. Welcome on board. Hello, Perizim.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. Good to see you.
Good
afternoon, sir. Benny. Okay, good to see you.
Yeah. Thank you once again. Thank you for coming live again.
Yes.
And I want to ask again for clarification. And so when I was growing up, all these stories were told. We were being told all these things. And the man who told me this exactly, definitely nǹkan people here ṣe, we know why they carried it out. And on the second thought, we were told then that the southerner of, what's it called, Bello, he was bringing in some jihadis from the northern part of Africa. And the way those people were seeing those things, they were scared that, seems this man want to Islamize the country. That if
there was a claim, the claim was made.
There was a claim. The claim
is
was
made. I was saying the claim was made, or that he actually brought those people.
The claim was made. Yes. That he actually brought those people. That in fact, the man said it was announced on radio that people were coming, all these jihadists from Northern Africa coming into the country through this northern border, and all their aim is to come and Islamize the country. And it's one of the reasons why those guys and struck and did all what they did. Apart from being, yes, they want to Ibonize everything. It is all about Iboku. But majorly too, they claim that guy, southerner of.
Sorry, President. Let me just. Sorry, President. Let me just mute for a second. Sorry. 1 second. See, it's a claim. It's the exact same reason they said the reason was because they wanted to release Awo. They will say, and by the way, this thing you're saying is you're right, but it's actually something from Bengbule. Bengbule wrote it in his book. This whole idea of Islamization, to be honest, I think it's just a thing that, so they will tell different people different things. For instance, to the Yoruba people, they didn't tell us about Islamization. What we were told growing up was that it was because they were going to release Awolowo from prison. Only for us to read the special branch report and discover that there were no plans for Calabar at all. Although, when you read the book by in fact, let me even say it this way. If you read Adewale Ademoyiga, he did not mention Islamization at all. He mentioned, the tribalism, nepotism. No, that was even, you know what, let me do it this way. I'll give you three perspectives. Maybe this will help. Adegboyega talked about Awo. They're going to release Awo from prison in Calabar. Nobody says anything about him becoming president. That one came later in 1967 from the Eastern region. That was what Adegboyega said. They're going to release Awo from prison, and they're going to restructure the country and have the military actually govern the country. They'll break it down into more, they'll create more states. That's what you find that in Adegboyega's book. When you listen to or you read Nzogu's speech, he said it was because of tribalism and nepotism and the people that collect 10% that made Nigeria big for nothing. That's what he said. When you read Bengbule's book, he was talking about Islamization. As far as I am concerned, I think they just threw all these things out there, right, to make it impossible, so to speak, to actually hold them to what they really wanted to do. It was about Igbo domination. I will say it clearly. All this other Islam, did it happen? Like what you said right now, there's another claim that they had guns, that they brought guns in. They were bringing guns from Mecca. Kinikon. Me, I don't believe it. And the reason is because I'm not saying that the Northerners were not trying to Islamize anything. But I don't have any proof. But that's not even the point. The point is that anytime people want to go against the North, they will use that one. It was done this last election as well now. Oh, they're going to Islamize Nigeria. They're going to Islamize Nigeria. And everybody say, oh, that's true, that's true, that's true. It's not, maybe they want to Islamize Nigeria. But the point is that that's not the real reason for the thing they are doing. Tobate, even if it's a reason, it's just one of the things that it's not the core of their purpose. It's not their purpose for what they're doing. They're just using it to bamboozle us. So I'm trying to quickly speak, and I'm going to read something from that book later, but I'm trying to quickly speak because if you keep saying it, people are going to think that that's actually the reason for it. It's a narrative they sold, just like they sold to the Yoruba man. They sold him the idea that there was going to be they're going to release Awo from prison. They say different things to different people depending on who they are talking to. Let's not, take a
No. That's what I just want clarity on, because I believe they did that for their home people and purposely because of what was going on in the north through southern of Sokoto there. So, thank you for the clarity. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. The funny thing is, when you read the Swear Branch report, that one also did not come up. In Kotoman Shemi is like you have this different. So it's like if you want a Yoruba man to join at the time, what was it that was paining Yoruba people the most? Awo in prison. Islamization did not even come into play. It was just about, okay, we're going to see how we want to release Awo from prison. They even talked about how they're going to have a plane, a helicopter that will go to Calabar to pick him up. But in the real plan. So what they did was, Baj said they layered the reasons. Yes, but I don't even think it was reason. Again, they were just lies. Let me even say it straight up. They had one reason, but they duplicated. How do I even explain this thing? It's amazing. These guys are quite interesting, Sha. They told everybody what everybody needed to hear that will make them work with them. I'll read something to you from.
Decoy. I'll read something to you from. You want to use the word decoy?
Well, it's also a very good way to put it. But I want to find a document. Okay, this is from. 1 second, please. Oh no, not this book. I want to read. I'd love to read Bengbule's book because he just kept going at it. Okay, Mambo. Is there another person trying to come up? Okay, maybe I should ask, does another person have any questions while I'm trying to find the page of this book? Okay, Motetirigo. Let me tell you what Bengbule wrote in his book. You will not. I want you to judge. Can you know? Ṣé bá ló ṣe ó dẹ̀ lè rí bẹ́ẹ̀ náà àkókò mọ̀ bọ́yẹ́ kí n kàkọ́ tán tí Bengbule kọ. It says by Christmas 1965, a contagion of. But I'm reading this book called Nigeria's Five Majors, right? Coup d'etat of 15 January 1966. This is from Bengbule. It says by Christmas 1965, a contagion of rumors had swept like a windstorm throughout. Sorry, I'll take that again. By Christmas, he said a lot of things. So, but should I go back a little? No, let me go back a bit so I can give us context. Sorry, the more I go back, the more I want to go back. Okay, let's start from here. It's long ago, but I'm sure you're going to enjoy. 305. Okay. It says, I was directly involved in that matter. I was the Army engineer officer called upon to erect the Bailey Bridge under reference, but several questions arose with regard to Brigadier's favor curring order. Okay, first, since the project was something the Army engineers had not envisaged, I really want to read out this thing. Let's just read it. First, since the project was something the Army engineers had not envisaged and hence had not budgeted for in the first place, who specifically was going to foot the bill arising from it? The echo is, if you're just joining, just hold on, please. The audio is not echoing. Okay, Motiri. So it says here, let me just go back a little. So it says, as a matter of fact, we were then busily, I'm trying not to go back too far, right? So that it will not be too far from the point, but I don't want to read just what they said about Islamization. I want to read some other things to lay the groundwork for it. So it makes it easier for us to actually understand a bit better. If you're on TikTok, if you're on YouTube, please like the live. Thank you very much. Like the live stream. If you're on TikTok, kindly power tap. Thank you so much. All right, let's get back into this. So he says, Brigadier Ademulegun, Jesus. As a matter of fact, we were then busily engaged in the construction of the Kachia Bridge, without which no troops could make any effective use of the Kachia rifle range from some 130 kilometers of untarred road from the northern capital. Were we to handle the governor's assignment, we would therefore have to drive out Kachia to convey our equipment, including all the bridging panels we needed, back to Kaduna, which we could not do and still meet the deadline set by Brigadier Ademulegun. So, acting in conformity with the military adage that a good army engineer officer was someone who had the guts to say to his commander's face, it cannot be done, and certainly not by Monday, our corps commander, Major Kwechime and Ẹkáàbọ of the Midwest, was quick to outline to the brigadier the reality of the situation. In the process, he, Okwechime, subtly added that he honestly approached. By the way, Okwechime was one of those people who eventually allowed the Biafran army gain access into the Midwest in August of 1967. But let's continue. In the process, Okwechime subtly added that he honestly saw nothing wrong in His Excellency, the governor, using the existing approach through the Ahmadu Bello way to get to the Zaria Road praying ground. But as it turned out, Brigadier Ademulegun was far from prepared to listen to the voice of reason. Instead, he picked up the telephone, rang the governor, and rather than put across our views on the matter, dispassionately reported that these Igbo chaps in the army engineers have bluntly refused to tackle the job. Again, the person who is talking is Bengbule. Bengbule had this knack for shielding the Igbos and then inserting certain things. So I don't know if it's true, but this is what is in his book. That hardly surprised us though, for by then he had become adept at putting tribe first in his handling both official and private matters. As memories of the incident came rushing back, I nodded thoughtfully, but I did not even utter a word. I had no intention of getting myself actively involved in the ongoing conversation. Let's jump a little. Let's jump because of time. Let's jump. Mumbo, I'm trying to just move because of time. Okay. By Christmas 1965, a contagion of rumors had swept like a windstorm through the entire army. There were all kinds of rumors, feverish rumors, ugly rumors, baseless and well-founded ones, and they were being spread everywhere, in the barracks as well as in the billets, at the dining tables, in the officers' messes, and in 1,001 other places. Indeed, rumors were going around fast. They were being peddled by officers and men alike, even civilians. And they were being gobbled up just as fast, hook, line, and sinker. For instance, it was being whispered that the much feared jihad had been scheduled to take place in January the following year, and there was no gainsaying the D-Day. It was January 17, 1966. Major Zogo himself had dropped me a hint that cold Christmas morning as we were walking back to my quarters from the officers' mess immediately after breakfast. The gory exercise, he disclosed, was to be directed principally against the leading Upga politicians and their Christian followers south of the Benue as well as the Niger River. As a matter of fact, went on the one-time military intelligence chief, its tripartite aim is first to eliminate all the powerful southern politicians opposed to the NNA. Second, to enforce the present Igbos must go hue and cry in the north, and third, to impose Islam on the Christian south, and consequently to establish Nigeria as a theocratic Muslim country. Sir Ahmadu Bello is behind it all, and he will be the one calling the shots, I gather. He bit his lower lip and then went on, we must forestall those bigots, Ben. Yes, make no mistake, we will forestall them by all means and at all costs. We've got to arrest the situation. I remember agreeing with him in a shocked tone of voice. Continuing, he said something about some arms and ammunition having been smuggled into the country through the northern border solely for the purpose of prosecuting the said jihad. Then, by way of buttressing the rumor, he further hinted that the brigade camp RSM, Ambrose Chukwu, had lately been arrested and is being held on the orders of the brigade commander, Brigadier S.L. Ademulegun. For God's sake, why? I had burst out before I knew it. Well, Zogu answered, smiling wryly, RSM Chukwu is being accused of not only allowing some pressmen into the camp, but giving them access to the QM store, that's called Quartermaster store, apparently to take snapshots of some heavy wooden boxes which the brigadier had caused to be kept in that store, and which he suspected contained smuggled munitions being held on Sir Ahmadu Bello's account and passed off as army property. Is that so? I shook my head incredulously. A court-martial, mark you, is already in progress. A court-martial? Already? You can quote me anywhere, Ben. Then this is serious. Very serious. As I spat out the words, I could feel my heart throbbing with indignation. All I can say right now is this. Zogu declared in his turn, if Brigadier Ademulegun is actually aiding and abetting northern political leaders in bringing in arms surreptitiously or in engaging in some sort of macabre gun running, then heaven help this country, for I cannot but foresee an imminent national disaster. Unless, as you said, I reminded him, we frustrate the bloodthirsty fellows, stage a preemptive strike. Unless that, of course, he considered. That same morning, after Major Zogu had taken his leave, I went out to my apartment and tried to establish the truth of the rumor concerning RSM Chukwu. It was a task I could not help settling myself, not because I had any reason at all to doubt my informant, an ex-military intelligence chief, but in obedience to an overwhelming urge to follow up an incredible story. As it turned out, not only was I able to ascertain the truth, I also learned through the grapevine that some Arab soldiers in Mufti were already infiltrating into the country at the invitation of the Northern Regional Premier, Alhaji Sir Ahmadu Bello. The jihad many an officer feared was soon to become a military fact, and their fears could not be dismissed out of hand as completely groundless, especially when viewed in the light of the secret nocturnal meetings purportedly held at the Premier's Ngwanshano residence. Clandestine nocturnal meetings with which the names Ademulegun, Akintola, Memalari, and Ahmadu Bello had been frankly associated. The prevailing political crisis in Nigeria, argued practically every officer I spoke to, was decidedly ugly enough as it was. Therefore, any attempt on the part of the NNA politicians to exacerbate that situation by converting it into something of a sectarian bloodbath would undoubtedly mean the ultimate disintegration of Black Africa's most populous nation. Indeed, many officers feared the worst, more so as the news of the latest posting of some of our top military commanders had reached us from Lagos. According to reliable reports, the GOC Major General Aguiyi Rossi and Igbo was to go on an indefinite leave at the behest of the Defense Ministry. Lieutenant Colonel Hilary Njoko, another Igbo, was to relinquish the command of the 2nd Battalion based at Ikeja near Lagos to Lieutenant Colonel Yakubu Gowon, a northerner from Pangshin, and proceed to Kaduna to take over command of the NMTC. It was evident that by that arrangement, the Southern Command of the Nigerian Army was to fall almost entirely into the hands of the Northerners, and to that extent, the NPC. What with Brigadier Zach Mimalari, a Northerner commanding the Lagos-based 2nd Brigade, Lieutenant Colonel this is the person who said everybody is thinking like a tribalist and using tribe. Apparently, he's also using north, but he's not a tribalist because north is not tribe. We all know what we are doing. Let's continue. So he says, I'll explain everything if I'm sure you already get the point, but let me just read a bit more. It says, what with Brigadier Zach Mimalari, a Northerner commanding the Lagos-based 2nd Brigade, Lieutenant Colonel Yakubu Gowon controlling the said 2nd Battalion at Ikeja, and Lieutenant Colonel Agema, yet another Northerner commanding the Ibadan-based 4th Battalion. By the way, every name I mentioned here, apart from Yakubu Gowon, every one of them was killed. Those postings, however one might care to look at them, I'll take it taken from the top. It was evident that by that arrangement, the Southern Command of the Nigerian Army was to fall almost entirely into the hands of the Northerners, and to that extent, the NPC. What with Brigadier Zach Memalari, a Northerner commanding the Lagos-based 2nd Brigade, Lieutenant Colonel Yakubu Gowon controlling the said 2nd Battalion at Ikeja, and Lieutenant Colonel Agema, yet another Northerner commanding the Ibadan-based 4th Battalion. These postings, however one might care to look at them, really led many of us to believe that the entire reorganization was not unconnected with the set plot to launch a jihad, to plunge the southern regions of the country into an unimaginable state of chaos and devastation. There was also a disturbing but unconfirmed report from Ibadan that some arms and ammunition had disappeared from the 4th Battalion's armory. Naturally, many officers linked that too with the impending jihad. Again, if you see the way this thing is said, I think it's a way to convince us that was a reason. And so everything that he's saying here, you will not find it in any other book about this thing. So you go here, you hear about jihad. You go there, you hear about Awo. You go there, you hear about changing Nigeria's image. You go there, you hear about structure of Nigeria. I think everybody just pick what they want pick to do what they want do, right? And also you name a dog, you give a dog a bad name so you can hang it. That's what I can say based on it. So I'm very careful with the rhetoric from the East. Let me read a few more things before we close. It says here, again, I'm reading Nigeria's 5 Majors by Bengbule. And quite interesting that what Bengbule was, criticizing Ademulegun about, saying that that he was calling them Igbo guys, which is like he's taking the tribe first, is exactly what he's also doing by shouting that these people are from the north, from the north, from the north. So if you don't like people, I don't know if you noticed what I just read right now, Shao. I hope you did. You say the person who is always saying Igbo officers is going tribe first, but you're also discussing officers taking over different places in the south, and you're shouting northerner. Does that make it? Is wrong for that person to mention Igbo, but it's okay for you to call them northerner? Why not just think of Nigeria first? Everybody, we know what we are doing in this country, but let me just read a few more things. It says here, there was also a disturbing but unconfirmed report from Ibadan that some arms and ammunition had disappeared from the 4th Battalion's armory. Naturally, many officers linked that too with the impending jihad. I could not help doing so myself. More than that, I looked forward with a sense almost of feverish expectancy to the time when our counter plot would come in handy to enable us to restore the much needed sanity. For I could not see how any Nigerian patriot, as preoccupied as most of us were with our country's general well-being, could elect to stand nonchalantly by and watch the so-called Black Africa's most populous nation go to pieces, which was bound to happen if no drastic measure was taken, and taken quickly, in the overriding national interest. You will not see all these things in the special branch report, by the way. Of course, it was not as if the federal authorities were altogether unconscious of those ricocheting, unsettling rumors, not by long shot, for circulating throughout the number 1 and number 2 brigades was a letter from the Cabinet Office warning all military personnel to desist from rumor mongering. But it was one thing to issue a stern warning of that sort, it was another to get the addresses to comply with it, with all the seriousness it deserved. I'm going somewhere. So the Cabinet Office warning, so the Cabinet Office warning was not only unheeded, it proved hopelessly counterproductive. Consequently, as the days went by, more and more rumors gave many a soldier something new to talk about. For instance, some Igbo staff officers at the army headquarters were reportedly busy filing their private coffers. Sorry, I'll take that again. Some Igbo staff officers at the army headquarters were reportedly busy filling their private coffers with 10% financial inducement from contractors, whilst a cabal of the Yoruba counterparts manning the Nigerian Army Education Corps, hitherto in the charge of the individual unit, was said to have conspired to seize total command and control of the Army Children's Schools located in the various Army military units in the country. Furthermore, despite the fact that the official casualty figures had read a conservative 153 with regard to the situation in the Western region, otherwise known as the Wild West, well over 2,000 people were estimated to have been massacred inside just 4 months of horrendous turbulence. Without any shred of doubt, the entire Nigerian environment was perceptibly awash with rumors, including those relating to extravagant spending on the part of the Federation's stupendously rich. For example, a certain socialite of a politician was said to have imported a Mercedes 600 into the country, something unheard of in a society teeming with beggars as well as bugged. Anyway, it's long. The point, he even mentioned Okotiebo here. He said he had pointed out the trademark of the said Okotiebo shoes factory imprinted on a thing for me. The point is, they had different reasons for what they did. All right, but another day we'll go deep into this. But I just read Nigeria's 5 Majors by Bengbule, and yes, he talked about that rumor, but I don't take it seriously because it's just like hearing that they were doing this. Guys on TikTok, we have to appeal. We have to power tap. I just received a. What's this? Looks like TikTok is. I've been restricted. Can you still hear me? I want to report account. Can you hear me in the comment section? I want to record account. I want to report account. Oh my show. Some Nigerians are just interesting characters. Why would they report this account now? They just reported this live. And I thought we were being, I don't know again, this Nigeria, like, should we be like, because I try to be measured, right? I try to be measured so that we don't, go overboard. But they've been reporting, I just got some pop-ups here, some messages from TikTok. Oh, gal. And we try to be, I don't think people want us to be balanced. I think people want us to be quiet. And they will lose. I cannot be quiet, but I can be respectful, and I try to be. And I think we've been doing that, to be honest. Please, since this is happening, everyone, please let's power tap. Maybe that will help on TikTok. Please, they are reporting the live. But wait, though, the people that curse them out. People that curse Igbo people, because this is what Igbo people do on this live. I don't have time to be going around. Igbo people always do this every time I talk about the coup. May they get well soon, though, because I try now. Have I said, do I? We don't insult anybody. I even make excuses for Igbos sometimes because I know how deeply troubling it can be. I can't they should you by law. They should you by law, and I try to be fair. I try to be fair, but I can't lie just to make some people feel comfortable. If they want comfort, they should go and meet anti-comfort. All right, we'll be fine, Sha. But please let's just power tap. We'll be done soon anyway. Meanwhile, we've never said anything. We've not said anything. But it is well. All right. Somebody was trying to come up earlier. Decipher. Let's bring him up, and then he'll be the final person to speak up on the stage. And then we'll see what we can do before we go on. Hello, Decipher.
Hi.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to join your live
Thank you.
today. First off, I'm a Ghanaian.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I got interested in, this whole Igbo thing when these people try this kingdom nonsense in our country. So I started being.
Don't you like the idea? You don't like the idea of an Igbo kingdom in your country?
I mean, how?
But they are going to bring development to your country now.
I mean, even the fact that anybody could even think cross anybody's mind is such gross disrespect. Because first of all, the whole idea smacks of basically that you want to live in a clan in somebody's country. You are not ready to, live. You want to live as one clan in somebody's country. What does this speak of? But moving on. So it got me interested whenever something came to know about these people. And since then, I found your page and I'm an ardent follower, if I should say that.
Thank you.
I enjoy the way you split the issues and the presentation, everything is very enjoyable. Now, the question I want to ask is about this Inzogu of a man.
Okay.
Currently, when I listen to some of these discussions, there's this talk about the place where he comes from. The Igbos are making this argument that the place where he comes from, I think it's called Akpanam or something like that.
Okpanam.
Yes, are now saying they are not Igbos.
Okay.
And so they are making this argument that the guy was from there. And because of that, people are saying that Igbos, they are labeling him together with Igbos. There was an Igbo coup. So how come they are today saying that they are not Igbos? But meanwhile, whatever the guy did is being blamed on them Igbos. Can you, run me through your thoughts on this particular aspect of that discussion?
Thank you. So again, let me start by saying this.
Yeah.
The coup is not Igbo because Igbo people planned the coup. That's not why it's Igbo. That's one. Number two, if there's anybody to be celebrated, apart from the fact that he killed the Sardauna and his wife, which was terrible, but if you're looking for people who had good intentions, terrible execution, but good intentions, the one person or one of the people you will say you have to, acknowledge would be Nzogu. Right? So as far as I'm concerned, 7 people planned that coup. Of all those 7, only 2 people make sense to me, Nzogu and Adeboyega, because they were trying to change Nigeria. They were more like revolutionary, want to turn the things around, just make things better, even though they were naive and they were just doing what they did was unacceptable, but I understand the rationale behind it, but it's still wrong. That's one. Number
Idealist, 2, right?
Yeah, idealist. God bless you. That's the word.
Okay.
Okpanam people are Igbo. They've been Igbo before. Sorry, I have to mute you. There's feedback.
Oh,
Okpanam
okay.
people. Thank you, but you can mute in a bit. Thank you. So Okpanam people are Igbo. Here's an issue that I think. Number one, I can't speak a lot to it, but this is what I'm going to say. There's a problem, I think, with people. And the problem is, like, let me give an example. Let's say, for instance, I live in, Yoruba land is, okay, let me use it also to talk to all of us about this, the complexity of this thing. Let me just use this opportunity to talk about the complexity of this thing. See, in Yoruba land, everywhere you go is Yoruba. All the states. Right now, let's even use right now. We have 6 states that are in the southwest, and all of them are Yoruba. But you go to one state in some part of the country, and you find like 6 different groups within that state. In other words, you cannot judge that area the same way you're going to judge Yoruba land. What am I trying to say? There are certain places you go to where there are different ethnic groups living in there. That's one. If you have a situation where, like in the Delta area, there are Igbos in the Delta area, but it's not everywhere you go in that area that is Igbo land. The Igbos don't like to hear that thing. They think that because they are there, then they own all those spaces. So when you tell them that, listen, there are Igbos here, oh, but it's not that, it doesn't mean that everywhere here is full of Igbos. Then they now tell you that, oh, that means you are saying that they are not Igbos. Therefore, But meanwhile, if any of them does something good, e.g., the present director of the World Trade Organization, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, she's from the same Delta state. They will say she's Igbo. But if somebody does something bad, they'll say, after all, you say you are not Igbos, therefore we have nothing to do with you. We are not Igbo. But if somebody from that same place does something good, they'll be shouting at top of their voices that, oh, that person is Igbo. The issue is not that they are not Igbos from that area. To be clear, Okpanam people are Igbo people. But there are other people also in that area. And those other people also talk about their own ancestry. For instance, some of them say that they are from Benin. Some of them say they are from Yoruba land. Some of them say that they are from Igala. And some say they are from Igbo land. And so you have a mix. And it's just that you have to be very culturally undeveloped to have a problem with people asserting their identity. You want it to be yours, even though they are not connected to you. But that does not mean that people that are connected to you are not from that place. I don't know if you get what I'm trying to say. So the thing is, if it works in their favor, those people are Igbos. If they don't like what they have done, then they are not Igbos. But to be clear, Nzogu was an Igbo man. But guess what? That's not even the reason why we say the coup was an Igbo coup. It's about the entire ideology behind it and the execution of the coup. So I don't know if that answers your question. They are Igbo, but the bigger space, which is the Anioma, is the one we tell people that Anioma is not Igbo. But Okpanam are Igbo. Anioma is a bigger space. And I should also use this opportunity to talk about it. I know people who always come here to, just say off on understand that area. Just listen to the people leading that place. I've said is that, number one, Anioma, that area is not Igbo land. And I say that because there's a Yoruba subgroup that is actually indigenous to that area. And they were there before the Igbos got there. How do I know? Because of the name the Igbo people call them. They call them Odiani. They call them the indigenous people of the land. That's what the Igbos call them. And so when you talk about Anioma, they say, oh, that means it also applies to Okpanam. They're just being clever by half. The truth of the matter is that the area is made up of people from different places, right? There are Benins there, there are Yorubas there, there are Igala there, there are Igbos there, and they've created their own identity. And some of them will identify whatever they want to identify with. That's their own. They have a way of, I don't know how they do it, but they have a way of doing it amongst themselves. But they have said it several times. It's just that some people don't like to hear it. But if they achieve anything good, they will say all of them are Igbo. If they do something wrong, they will say, after all, they say they're not Igbo. Therefore, they're not Igbo. But that's just, they're just deceiving themselves. But to be honest, if a person tells me that he's Yoruba, all I need to know is this: can you prove it? If a person tells me that he's not Yoruba, I don't have to prove anything to him to make him believe he's Yoruba. I'm not that means it doesn't gel. We in our own culture, we don't look around and be forcing our identity on people. People will tell us that they are, and that's why when the different kings, travel to Ife and say, oh, we are from Ife, So I hope I answered the question. Is Igbo, and what he did, by the way, is not the reason the coup was Igbo. He, in my own opinion, and from what I've studied, there's a book by I also recommend the book. It's by Olusegun Obasanjo. The book is called Nzogu. Speaks a lot about him. You also read about him in Adewale Ademoyiga's book, Why We Struck. Like somebody who was trying to further an ethnic ambition or agenda. It doesn't look. Nzogu was not an Igbo jingoist. But that's not to say the coup that he was part of was not an Igbo coup. I hope I answered the question. Decipher. Hello, Decipher. They should be proud of Nzogu, by the way. He's one of their best. Just that he made some very terrible mistakes. But he's,
Forgive me.
I believe
my mic was off. So I get
okay.
it. I mean, you've done some surgery here. So what would you say now made it an Igbo coup? Now that we get the out.
I've said this several times, though, and this is what they're asking me now is a series. Let me find a way to listen it in the next couple of minutes.
Forgive me.
No, it's okay. I actually appreciate the question. What makes it an Igbo coup?
Yeah.
Again, sorry, I have to do this again because it's important.
In
order to tell you, in order to say what makes an Igbo coup, let me also repeat what doesn't make it an Igbo coup. It is not an Igbo coup because it was planned by Igbos.
Okay.
It is not an Igbo coup because it was executed mainly by Igbos. It's an Igbo coup because of the philosophy behind the coup itself and the execution of the coup. For instance, when they were going to execute people, all the politicians from the north, the west, sorry, not all, politicians from the north, the west, and the Midwest were unalive. Nothing happened to any politician from the east.
Okay.
Senior military officers from the north and the west were unalive. Nothing happened to any senior officer from the east.
Okay.
The plan to do something, the other thing they promised the people from the different regions they did not do. For instance, whilst originally, according to them, they wrote down that they wanted to have the coup in Lagos, in Kaduna, in Ibadan, in Benin, and Enugu. The real plan that they actually put in motion, set in motion, was actually for 3 towns or 3 capitals, Lagos, Kaduna, and Ibadan. Nothing was planned for Enugu, nothing was planned for Benin, and nothing was planned for Calabar. Meanwhile, they are told Ademoyega, who wrote it in his own book, that they are going to do this thing in order to release Awolowo from prison in Calabar.
Okay.
When it came to every Igbo person that should have been killed, I'm not saying it's good for them to kill anybody, or Igbo, Yoruba, or Hausa. That's on the point. The point is just that if you say you're going to kill different people, how come you were able to kill people from other regions but yours? So the ones that were supposed to be killed...
I heard them claim there was a quartermaster who was Igbo quartermaster or...
Yes, there was I read it earlier. There was a quartermaster, Arthur Negbe, who was killed, who was Igbo. I read that earlier. I said senior officers. So the senior officers will be the people like Memalari, people like Ademulegun, people like Shodainde. Igbos had more officers in the Nigerian army.
Yeah.
Almost 40. Yoruba had about 10. I also had about 7 or 8, thereabout.
Yeah.
So of all their own 40 officers, the senior... none
of them.
About 37, I think. They didn't think of course, Negbe was killed. Was a quartermaster. Now, there are different reasons for that. Some people will say because he had the keys to the armory. Some people will say it was for personal vendetta between Anuforo and himself. Some people say it was actually supposed. It was what's the word now? Loyal to the Nigerian army itself, and they didn't want that kind of thing. So whatever their reasons, but the point is that anybody who was senior, like Ademulegun, all those higher ranked officers, nobody touched anyone who was Igbo amongst them. And they had more in Igbo land. Next, when the coup took place, every single politician or civilian who was Igbo that was meant to be killed had an excuse. Every single one, there was an excuse. For Mbadewe, they said he ran across. I said it earlier. You find that in the book by Frederick Forsyth, The Biafran Story. Said he ran across an open lawn and he ran into the house of the president, who was not at home at the time. Again, why was he not at home? How come the president was conveniently out of the country by December of 1965? He said he was going on a cruise, and from that cruise he went to the UK. This man was on holiday to the point where his own ADC left him there. Have you ever heard that kind of thing before? That the ADC of the president would leave him there?
That story, I've heard that part.
ADC left him there. ADC left him there. His own doctor left him there. He stayed there. He knew what was going on. So the president was conveniently out of the country. Mbadiwe was running out across a lawn into the president's house, and that was the only house the coup plotters did not search. That doesn't tell us something.
Yeah.
Unwafo Orizu that was supposed to transfer power over to Deep Charima the very next day, who was the Senate president, who was also Igbo, refused to do it. and a few hours later, he transferred power to his own brother, Ironsi.
Yeah.
40 minutes of discussion between, this thing is long, 40 minutes of discussion between Ironsi, Nwafọ, and most likely Azikiwe, while them Shehu Shagari were you find that in the book by Shehu Shagari, Beckon to Serve. What were they doing inside? And we know what they were doing inside because by the time he came out, he spoke to Deep Charima, and the next day, the very next day, they made him Oga. They made Ironsi the president of Nigeria. How did that happen? Ironsi knew about everything that happened. How come he knew enough to tell Gowon that anything can happen? Go and have fun. And then by morning, he was the one who delayed the soldiers at the coup plotters. The coup happened between 2 and 3 a.m. They gathered to meet at 5 a.m. and was still asking for 2 more hours before those people moved. Why would you tell them to wait 2 more hours if you are the Oga? Yeah. When you told them to go and bring people, that you really needed, you find this in the book by the way, that's 5 a.m., 7 a.m. I'm always talking about is in Gowon's book, Gowon, the biography of a soldier statesman. When he then said, okay, these are the places you have to go and check, hold on to these places, bring this person, bring these people. Why was it that of the people that he was looking for, the names that he mentioned were Ifajuna and Oje? Why? You find that in the book by Njoku. What's that of this book again? Tragedy Without Heroes. By the time you piece all these things together, and then 3 months after the coup, 18 Igbo officers were promoted. 18. No Yoruba officer was promoted. And then, in order to create balance in their own warped mind, they picked 3 northern officers above 5 Yoruba officers who were the Oga, and they made those 3. They promoted those 3 with the 18 Igbos, making 21. When the thing eventually worked, one of the first policies of Ironsi was to reverse the northernization policy of the northern region by saying that the civil service was now federal, which meant that no region had any civil service. In other words, I can bring anybody from Onitsha to come and work in Sokoto. We are all one Nigeria. Yeah. And then when he became the head of state, all, not excluding one, all his advisors were Igbo. Do you know? Well, then you put you and by the way, it's was so. I'm just saying the one that we can quickly say here. How come when he came to the people that were going to be killed, when he came to Azikiwe was conveniently out of the country. When he came to Mbadiwe, he was holed up in the house. When he came to Nwafọ Rizu, he had something to say. When he came to Michael Okpara, they said Macarius was around. There's always an excuse for every killing that was supposed to happen in Igbo land or to Igbo people. But for Yoruba, also they just kill those ones easily. Yeah.
Yeah, as a general, he was sworn to defend the constitution. Yeah.
Cool.
So if there was a coup, that's Ironsi.
Mm-hmm.
If there was a coup and you succeed as a general who is sworn to defend the constitution, do you then go ahead to assume power, or you hand over back, you assist the political setup to get back on its feet? Because
yeah, you're right though.
Wasn't killed.
So it was a big complex.
Was
at
it
the
his
time
job to help himself?
He wasn't, and you're right.
Basically.
You're right. You are very correct. At the time, the president was outside. The president was out of the country. Yeah. The prime minister was killed. The Senate president was already the acting president in the absence of the president, himself. Now they're going to. So there was a vacuum. The vacuum was a vacuum there was one vacuum of the prime minister. 1 second. So we had the president, we had the prime minister. President was Azikiwe, prime minister was Tafawa Balewa. President was out of the country. When he left, the Senate president became the acting president. That's another Igbo, Nwafọ Rizu. The prime minister was not around, was missing. Let's just put it that way. So there was a vacuum because we're trying to get the British to help with restoring order. The British asked that, we have a signed document from, someone who should be doing it, which would be the acting prime minister. Now, the acting prime minister should have been Deep Charima, who was a Kanuri man from the north. And because MPC was a senior partner in the alliance, they were supposed to be, and they had more seats anyway, they were supposed to be the one to actually give us acting prime minister. In that moment, they went to the acting Senate president and said, listen, we have a person here. We want you to make him the prime minister because you are the only one that can swear him in, according to our constitution at the time. Swear the Charima in as prime minister, and everything would have gone back to normal.
Exactly.
But what did Orizu say? Orizu refused to make him that. Why? Because Mbadiwe wanted to become the prime minister as per NCNC plan. They wanted Ozumba Mbadiwe to become the prime minister. The question is that if you guys were not doing this stupid game, why not just let the Charima become prime minister and everything would have just gone back to normal and we just rebuild and say, okay, you have killed the bad people, Abiola, let's rebuild. No, you have to install your people everywhere. So when the Mbadiwe could not work, then we had to now hear on 16th of January, on Sunday, they called in all the cabinet members and told them that, listen, when you were coming in, what did you see? By the way, when the cabinet members were coming into the building, they saw soldiers all over the place, armed. Okay. If you saw soldiers armed to the teeth, and I am Ironsi, and I come to you and say, guys, I see what's in the happen. No, I'm not even trying to become a girl, but see, these my boys. They don't really have time. They say I should become the boss. So I don't even want to take this thing, and then start shedding crocodile tears. Then Mbadiwe now came and said, "Oh, are you saying they cannot find the prime minister?" That one not they cry like Egberi. They can't say, "Oh, okay. You know what's going to happen? Look for paper, more sign." They can't find paper. They don't find paper. Somehow, one paper shall surface. They contact that and say, "Okay, by tomorrow, because on Sunday, by tomorrow we go finalize this thing." But right now, sign. We go type them tomorrow because they don't transfer power to them. If you really were for the nation, why did a soldier take over when there was an acting prime minister right there, Deep Charima?
Yeah, it's like catching a thief and still helping yourself.
Exactly. So, with these few points of mine and the others I did not make today, I hope I've been able to convince you and not confuse you. It was an Igbo through and through, and that's why. When people say it wasn't, I just laugh. Do you know why they had the counter coup? It was because it was an Igbo coup.
Was where you think Nzogo's mind was. That is a sophistication I was looking. Like,
okay, so
did he think? Do you believe he's somebody who expected, assuming that it would take this trend?
See, let me tell you something. Let me tell you about Nzogo. Nzogo didn't have time for all this.
Give him the benefit of the doubt. That's where I want.
Because if that's okay, so let me quickly explain.
Yeah.
So the way you're going to know, number one, is the speech Nzogo gave in Kaduna.
Okay.
He wasn't supposed to give that speech. He was not the Oga of the coup. He was just the coordinator of the northern operation.
Yeah.
From his speech, you can tell where his heart was. That's one.
Okay.
And he talked about the fact that they were trying to change Nigeria. They had this revolt. And so why do I believe him? Because I read what others said about him. Okay. His roommate was Olusegun Obasanjo. Right?
For real?
Yes. They were roommates. Olusegun Obasanjo would have been part of that coup. The only reason he was not there was that he was in India. He got back a day before the execution of the coup. That was why he was not part of it.
Oh, okay.
Obasanjo wrote a book on him. He titled it Nzogo. I read from another person who was very, very close to him, Ademo Ega. And it appears that this man just, and then also, he was the only one that actually succeeded. Like, he cornered everybody in the north. He did well. When he now heard that the coup had failed in the south, he was actually planning to take his troops down to the south and take over the entire place so that they can restore the original plan that Ademo Ega wrote in his book, Why We Struck.
Yeah.
And the people that actually betrayed him were the Igbos, e.g. Madebo, e.g. Ojuku.
Okay.
They now told him that, you should just go to Lagos, everything will be okay, they will do everything they are trying to do and everything. They should turned everything around on the guy. Eventually, he came down to Lagos and surrendered. So when I see him, I don't like the way he killed people in the north. I thought clearly it was wrong. But you can see the purity of his conscience, even though he was naive and what he did was terrible. But you can actually see that this guy was in his mind. This is how to reshape Nigeria. He wasn't thinking Igbo or thinking all those things. He was just trying to turn things around, and they chose him because they knew he could do it in the north. See the way he even did it. For weeks, they were having training sessions on the streets, and nobody knew what was happening. It was very good, very methodical.
Make you feel that he could have avoided killing the Sadona?
No. As far as he was concerned, he had to. I mean, what I just read out right now, what he said to Bengbule, he was talking about Islamization. They're going to Islamize this nation. We have to do something about it. See, in his head, it's like all these young people on social media just insulting everybody. We must kill everybody. We must have a coup. Let us have the soldier. In their minds, they really want to change Nigeria. But the reality is that they are stupid. They are just naive, stupid people. But very passionate. You can be very zealous. The Bible says that you can have zeal without knowledge. Very passionate. But it's not because they are bad people, though. They're just stupid. You can be stupid and be good intentioned or well intentioned. So
I'm feeling he could have just arrested the man, because that thing opened a whole hornet's nest. Like a whole king who is also a prime minister.
It wasn't a king, Sadana was not a king. It was a prince.
Okay.
It was a prince. It was the great grandson of Sultan Bello, who was the son of Osman Dan Fodio. So he's a prince, and he carried himself with he had this regal, this royalty about the way he did his stuff. Well, to be honest, again, he shouldn't have killed him. He should have arrested him. But in his own mind, this person is going to cause jihad. We must kill him. So, again, just young and naive and just being stupid. But see, I can acknowledge his errors without saying he did what he did. I don't think and maybe I've not studied, but I've tried it. I've read a few books. Maybe there are other books I still need to read, but I don't think he was in on the old, because if he was in on it, they would not have to persuade him to hand over to Inosi.
This is.
So sorry. Wait. I want that to actually sink in a little.
No, it is.
Hold on one second. If I just want to say it again, if he was in on the old game, nobody would need to persuade him to hand over to Ojukwu, to Ironsi, and Madiebo had to persuade him. Ojukwu also had to persuade him.
You just solved my dilemma. That this is where you split the atom. Yeah, exactly.
Thank you. Somebody says, Prof, please can you give us reference of how Madiebo betrayed Nzogu? Yes, that's why we struck by Ademwega. You know what? Give me a second. Let me find that book. If you guys don't mind.
I appreciate the walkthrough. It's been because this thing I've been battling this thing in my mind.
Oh, I'm glad I could help. Give me a second. Let me find that book. 1 second.
Sure.
Hey, live visibly restricted. They are guys, please let's power tap, but then they attack this live. Oh, Jesus is Lord.
But
wait, please don't speak yet, please. This is serious. If you keep speaking, this thing will go off. Please, guys, let's power tap. Please, like they are reporting. But guys, am I not fair enough? Okay, wait though. Somebody asked a question about about Madibo. Please mute because of the feedback. Thank you. Ombo. So, so to answer the question about the source of Madibo, again, it is. Oh gosh, man. It's struck by, you know what? It's why we struck by Adewale Ademoyega. It's there that it says here. Let me read something to you that he said about. Okay, Ombo. It says it was Captain. Oh, no. I'm just going to read a little bit of it. It's almost 4, and I don't want to be staying long on Thursdays. It says it was Captain Buli who had orders to contact Keshi, and it was the latter who contacted Madibo. Madibo found that the subalterns of his own unit had already turned full-fledged revolutionaries, to the point of obeying only Nzogu. Therefore, he reluctantly gave his support but was minded to foil the revolution. This was because Madibo was tribalistic to the core. For instance, he had told Ifajuna long before the coup that he, Madibo, believed that in Nigeria, tribal loyalties were stronger than national ones. Nzogu himself went to Major Hassan Yukatin at home. He discussed the situation with the latter, who, albeit rather reluctantly, gave his support and ordered the officers of his own unit to report to Nzogu for further deployment. Next, Nzogu sent a message to Lieutenant Colonel Bassi, a veteran of the Second World War. The latter did not know what the revolution was all about. By the way, this same Bassi was the one that Ojukwu contacted in 1964 to join his own coup plot. Ojukwu had reached out to Bassi, to David Ejo, Victor Banjo, and Yakubu Gowon. But Ejo and Gowon reported to General Foster. Let's continue. The latter did not know what the revolution was all about, latter being Bassi. Nonetheless, he submitted to the trend of things as they appeared and gave in to the revolution. There remained Lieutenant Colonel Ojukwu. Ojukwu was both crafty and selfish, and would neither give nor withhold his loyalty. He was running with the hare and chasing with the hounds. He was an opportunist who put himself above the safety of the nation. When at first Nzogu contacted him on the telephone, he was fully in agreement with the revolution. Soon after that, he was in touch with Ironsi, to whom he pledged his loyalty. After that, he was playing hide and seek with Nzogu, mainly biding his time. The activities of Nzogu on the morning of the coup were directed towards the consolidation of his night victory. He moved quite fast to ensure that those officers who did not participate in the coup were given their chances to declare either way. But Nigerians, being what they were, fought shy of the truth and declared for the revolution, when in fact they were opposed to it. This thing is long. This was what I was talking about when Nzogu wanted to travel down to. His speech is also here. By the way, Nzogu's speech is in the book by Adewale Ademoyega, but you can also find it online. Let me just read a bit more on Madibo and then we can call it a day. Ombo.
I'll have a follow-up.
Please don't. Jeez, man. I don't. Please. I'm sorry. I'm trying to read. Please. Sorry, that's one of the things. That's why I usually bring people up. It helps me to concentrate. I apologize, but it's a little distraction. Man, that book in a room. 1 second. All right. So here's where I'm going. It says, university students throughout the Federation hailed Nzogu and the revolutionaries. These were proofs that the revolution was popular. Unfortunately, it was at this stage that the revolution proved most unlucky. For as soon as Nzogu finished his orders and before the officers dispersed to prepare for the battle, that's a battle to come and take southern Nigeria, Major Madibo sought Nzogu's attention and impressed it on him that the revolutionary battle was very unnecessary. He argued that since Ironsi had accepted the coup as a fait accompli, it was all that Nzogu could wish for. He insisted that Nzogu would be demonstrating an unbridled lust for power if he launched his proposed attack. He advised Nzogu to cancel his plans and surrender to Ironsi, who would gladly carry out Nzogu's revolutionary plans. But it was an act of deceit. Madiebo was being mischievous. He did not reveal to Nzogu that he was in constant contact with Ironsi and Gowon, who had both instructed him to destroy Nzogu's revolution. He pretended to be talking in earnest to Nzogu and posed to be a friend of the revolution. By this, Madiebo showed himself as an enemy of a revolutionary Nigeria. This was the reason why an officer of Madiebo's caliber did not reach the peak of his career and output except in the tribal and reactionary war of Ojukwu in Biafra. Madiebo acted as an instrument for Ojukwu and helped the latter to prolong the dreadful and wasteful war, which did nothing but destroy the cream of the Igbo race. I say this much because the initial wave of success in Kaduna was soon depressed by the reactionaries, headed in this case by Madiebo. He, in collaboration with Ironsi and Gowon, worked to extinguish the light of the revolution. Nzogu took Madiebo's deceit for good advice, stood down the troops, and cancelled the plan. There's still a lot more to read there. There's some things about Madiebo. When Madiebo requested to go to Kano, in order to get Ojukwu to work with them. For instance, it says here, later on the 16th, when it was becoming obvious that Ojukwu was not faithful to the revolution, Nzogu requested Madiebo to go to Kano, both to collect money for the troops and to speak to Ojukwu. Madiebo tactfully turned down the request and suggested that a junior officer should be sent. Nzogu agreed and sent Captain Ude. The latter was promptly arrested by Ojukwu. Nzogu's natural reaction was to send a crack force under the command of Major Tim Onwotegu to knock some sense into the head of Odumegwu Ojukwu in Kano. This force was ready by the first light of the 17th. It was well armed and provided with adequate supporting weapons and transport. It had got ready to go forth when Madiebo sighted it and intervened against it. I mean, there's so many things that Madiebo did. The point is that Madiebo by the way, Madiebo also has a book. It's out there. I can't go out now. Nigerian Revolution. Reading that book just got me my stomach was turning my stomach. Like, people essentially that's what happens. If you put all these things together with other things I can't read right now because of time, I think you probably understand why I don't think Nzogu was on the same page as Ojukwu or Madiebo or Ironsi. It was more about changing Nigeria. It wasn't the ones who were tribalistic were the ones who came and then stopped him from left to him. He would have brought his troops down to the south, taken over the place, and handed everything over to the military. Or to work with those who had the revolutionary ideas, just like him, e.g., Ademega, who, by the way, has this almost like a manifesto in his own book about what Nigeria would look like. So I think those two were more about changing Nigeria. And from what Ademega wrote, and from what Segun Obasanjo wrote, and from what John Desenjo wrote, and from what A.H.M.K. Green wrote, by the time you put all those things together, and from what Bully himself wrote, it doesn't look like it was a tribalist but again, it was naive and it was not very smart, because killing Sardauna was just nonsense. But I mean, he's young. By the way, he was less than 30. He was 28, thereabout. So
yeah.
Can I ask something? This will be the last question, please, because I have to run.
Okay. So they say fool me once, it's on you. Fool me twice is on me. So now that we've spoken about Nzogu and his ideas, with all this, how come he still supported Ojukwu in the Biafra thing? I'm trying to reconcile. I mean, they did this to him. He realized they did this to him, and he still went to fight for Ojukwu. I'm trying to reconcile.
Yeah. All right. So there's geez, man, time. Okay, so there's one has to understand the context of that decision. Number one, these guys, not just Nzogu, Victor Banjo, Foladewole, Gani Adeleke, they were in the East, in prison, at the time the counter coup happened in July. Right? The counter coup happened in July, and the northern officers took over government. The interpretation they had was that, these northern guys want to take over the entire thing, and then this is what we've been working against. Therefore, Ojukwu probably has a point saying, let us break it. Again, I'm not saying this is what happened. I'm not saying this is the reality of what happened. I'm telling you the way it would have been perceived, right? Even though, of course, they were wrong, because the northerners that took over, the northerners are planned the coup were not necessarily the one that were at the helm of affairs, especially when it came to the head of state. Gowon was not part of the coup planners. That's the one in July. He knew about it, but it was not part of the original guys. But they brought him in later, and he was cool-headed. He wasn't trying to northernize Nigeria or any of this Islamization nonsense. But the way they would have interpreted it would be that, listen, the Northerners have taken over finally. It makes sense now that this one wants to break away. We're going to help them. We're going to help the East to get out of Nigeria. Again, they were in prison at the time Ironsi was killed, July 29, 1967. No, 1966, actually. July 29, 1966. They were in the prison in the Eastern region. They were released by Ojukwu. He was released by Ojukwu. He then saw the Northerners taking over the federal government. He then bought into this new lie that if the Eastern region were to break away, meanwhile, it was not from the Eastern region, no. He was from the Midwest. It was not from the. It was from the Midwest. It was not from the Eastern region. And then he was also writing letters to Ademoyiga, who himself was incarcerated in Warri. So the point is that for him, he was released by Ojukwu, and then they saw the events of the day that the Northerners were in charge. The East wanted to break away. He, again, that revolutionary thing. If we cannot do something about it in Nigeria, let us help this new nation. Let's carve out this new nation. There's another part about blackmail that I don't want to get into right now because of time. About the way he was perceived in the Eastern, the way he was perceived in the Eastern region, following some of the statements he had made to the BBC and to Dennis Ejindu. He had an interview with Dennis Ejindu. You will find it in the book by J. Isawa Elaigo. It's called Go On, the biography of a soldier statesman. So the statements he had made, those things, would also have had, no, let me feel that's not true. What you're writing, that's not true. Nzogu did not want one Nigeria. He did not want one Nigeria. He wanted Biafra. He was fighting on the Biafran side. He wrote a letter to Ademoyiga, which Ademoyiga referenced in this book, Why We Struck. Again, please, let's be careful. You can ask questions, but please don't put out statements as though it's the fact. He was not fighting against Biafra with his ragtag army. And the reason Gowon eventually gave him state burial was just to what's the word now? To tell people that there was no malice towards the coup plotters. Not because he fought on Nigeria. How could he have fought on Nigerian side? It was on the Igbo side. It was on Biafran side. So he did that because, if we can't get Nigeria changed, let's help create this new nation. And then there's also the other thing about how he was perceived by the average Igbo person following his interviews with the BBC, with Dennis Ejindu, and with the other thing, the things he has said with Tai Sholari. But that's another day's topic. The point is I'm trying to say is, the reason he fought on their side was because he was in prison in the East, he was released by Ojukwu, and then he felt that it was the Biafran stuff was a revolutionary move against Nigerian government. Therefore, he worked with Biafra. And he was not the only one. Every person, all the guys who were doing revolutionary, they fought on this side. Adewale Ademoyiga still fought for Biafra now. Chukwuka fought for Biafra. Victor Banjo fought for Biafra. Follow Iwole fought for Biafra. Ganiu Adeleke fought for Biafra. Many of the guys who were the serious people fought on the side of Biafra because most of them were released by Ojukwu and also felt that his agitation made sense. But again, it was just nonsense. There's nothing sensible about what Ojukwu did. He just kills people for no reason. I hope I answered the question, but I have to. We have to go now. But thank you very much for coming. I hope to see you again tomorrow, Decipher. I think we're going to have more sessions. We're going to have more session on this coup and stuff. We're going to have.
I've been following more than I've given it. I've been following a lot. So,
thank you.
Yeah, but quick one. Did you believe he felt he owed?
Are you sure you're Ghanaian? What is your questions?
Yes, I have been keen. I've been keen ever since this thing happened. I'm trying to understand these people. So. I've been very keen.
But if you're trying to understand these people, are you sure the question you're asking is to understand the people or to understand our history?
To understand them, like why they act the way they act.
But the question you're asking will not help you understand them. The question you're asking will help you understand Nigeria's history. So if you want to understand them,
But do you feel he felt gratitude to Ojukwu for releasing him? That could have been part of it.
No.
Okay.
No. I don't think it's about that. I think being released by Ojukwu just gives you that the context, that's what I'm looking for. Oh boy, I don't get tired now. They look for what be this. What's the word? Circumstance. Jesus Christ, I can't believe it took me a while. It just lets you understand the circumstances surrounding his decision. Not that, I mean, Ojukwu couldn't have done anything, to be honest, right? If he didn't release them, maybe Federal government would have released them or something. I don't think he's so much, because listen, the fact that they were in prison, it wasn't even real. I mean, they were in prison, but these guys were collecting their allowances now. They had their salaries paid. It wasn't like they were not. They were detained. They were not imprisoned.
Okay.
Right? They were detained. They were not in prison, because if you were in prison, nobody will be paying their salaries now. Yeah. So it wasn't like they were hated by the government. This man, what's his name? He also was treating them with kids' gloves. By the way, some people said he did not know what to do with them, but I think he did. I think so. And to be fair, he didn't know if he should exonerate them, because if he did, then the Northerners, the Westerners, the Midwesterners who lost people will feel cheated. He didn't know if he should imprison them, because if he did, those who thought he was revolutionary would have issues with him. Then the Igbos also, whose bidding they were doing, will also feel like, this guy now wait till we want to make them do now. So I think it was caught, he didn't know what to do. But that's his own problem, Sha. And he had to pay for that in July, sadly.
Yeah, it didn't help.
All right, yeah, but we'll be here again tomorrow 1 p.m. I think we should have at some point we'll have sessions, maybe one of these Tuesdays or Thursdays. We just have questions and answers, and I'm sure there are other people in the comment section who may also want to answer. I just ask. This is all I ask. If you're going to provide this stuff, please just try as much as possible to make sure that the things we write are correct. But we're all learning together. So we'll be here again tomorrow 1 p.m. Ife time, West African time. We're going to continue the series on Awo, Zeke, and the Constitution. And tomorrow we're going to be studying this book, Willings Commission Report of 1958, try to understand the agitation of people in Benin and Warri provinces and why they wanted their own region, which was the Midwest, and also what happened in the Eastern region as well. Maybe we'll pick on the middle belt, but we'll do as much as we can tomorrow. Somebody on YouTube, Kubu says, imagine people who paid an entire PM and they were collecting salary afterwards. Yes, now. Because if you don't pay them salary now, you'll not be like, say, okay. That's why all these people that are saying that is not, I'm just like, you must be joking. Like, they knew exactly what they were doing. If people don't talk, they just don't want to talk. We're not be saying we don't know what's happening. But it is well. Everybody will be okay. So, Eshewo, thank you very much for being here. Decipher, I'm glad you came up. And
it's been great.
Thank you. And thanks everyone in the comment section. Thank you for joining us on YouTube, on TikTok, and on Facebook. It's been a fantastic session. I really enjoyed every bit of it. Tomorrow, again, 1 p.m. Ife time, West African time, we're going to have another session discussing Awozik and state creation in Nigeria. So that will take us back into the 1950s. And once we are done, we'll revisit the war from a couple of people's perspectives. And again, like we always do, you can read one book, but that one book will lead you to like 2, 3, 5, 10 books, just to help us, get a better understanding of the events, right? So we're going to do that much later. But thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate it. So for folks on YouTube, we're going to have to let you go because we're about to play our anthem. So every day we come here, we'll end with Nigerian anthem and Yoruba anthem. We have the Nigerian anthem and also the Yoruba anthem. But YouTube has this thing where they give us strikes when we play copyrighted material. So we're going to have to let YouTube go. But folks on TikTok will be able to listen to our beautiful Nigerian anthem and Yoruba anthem. ó dẹ̀ kó orí àwọn tó wà YouTube ti mú mi ọ̀ torí kíní yìí tí wọ́n over hang o. They're like, if we're not going to allow us to listen, we'll not let it play. Somebody says we need to decipher who decipher is. I think I already deciphered it. Oh dear. All right. Mumbo, just trying to get the song. Or songs, I should say. All right. So thank you very much, our brothers and sisters on YouTube. Do have a lovely evening. I'll see you tomorrow, 1 p.m. UK time, West African time. For those of us on TikTok and Facebook, we're going to have our anthems now, and then we'll call it a day. Now, the problem is, we're going to have a say. I don't even know which one is YouTube again. Okay, I think I do now. All right. Have a great evening, YouTube people. See you tomorrow. God bless you. I cannot end YouTube. I think YouTube people don't want me to go.